Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam has now said that the extradition bill is dead. The controversial bill sparked the region's biggest political crisis in decades over fears of eroding autonomy. Carrie Lam also took full responsibility for what happened in the city. In her speech, Lam added that the work to amend the bill was quote-unquote a total failure. Hong Kong activist Dennis Ho has taken the issue of the Hong Kong protests to the United Nations Human Rights Council. The activist said that China was strengthening its grip on the region, thus eroding its autonomy and democratic freedoms. Now, Dennis Ho, the first secretary, however, for China's mission to the UN in Geneva, accused her of slandering the country and interfering in China's sovereignty and internal affairs. The general elections in Greece are over and the country has a new prime minister. However, nothing changes as far as Greece's bailout creditors are concerned. The creditors have warned the new prime minister against easing of the tight fiscal norms in the country's budget. The Eurogroup president has said that if commitments are broken, credibility will be the first thing to fall. Separatists and soldiers in Cameroon continue to be engaged in an armed struggle. The conflict has its roots in the separatist demand for a new state, that is Amazonia. So far, the conflict has forced almost 500,000 people to flee from the country's southwest and northwestern region. The country's English-speaking minority claims to be reeling under the dominance of the French-speaking majority. The White House National Security Advisor John Bolton has now fired a fresh warning to Iran. Bolton said that the U.S. will continue to put pressure on Iran until it gives up its nuclear program and also suspends support to global terrorism. Bolton's warning comes after a similar salvo by the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. France's top diplomatic advisor is going to visit Iran in the coming days. The French President Emmanuel Macron's aide will be aiming to de-escalate tensions between Tehran and Washington. France's officials said that both Iran and US had an interest in raising pressure at this stage, but both sides would want to start talks eventually, the officials said, and I quote, The important thing in a crisis situation such as this one is to find the middle point that take us from extreme tension to negotiation. The two-day intra-Afghan talks brokered by Germany and Qatar have come to an end. After the meeting, Qatar's lead negotiator said that the gap between the two sides, referring to the US and the Taliban, had come down considerably. The situation in Afghanistan, however, would have thrown a bloody shadow over the talks as there were multiple blasts, all attributed to the Taliban. The United Nations Deputy Spokesperson has revealed an alarming rise in the incidence of cholera in war-torn Yemen. The official figures indicate more than 460,000 cases so far. This is already higher than the total figure of 2018, which stood at 380,000. The sharp increase is being attributed to flooding and lack of access to clean drinking water. A helmet camera buried in the snow shows the last moments of the doomed Himalayan climbers. The action camera found has proved to be a black box after the death of the 8 climbers in Nanda Devi. The 154-second clip shows the climbers roped together in bright sunshine, taking nervous steps through a ridge. The screen goes blank. After that, the camera was found buried in snow near where the 7 bodies were found. The new regulations regarding forced garbage sorting have come into effect in Shanghai. The effort is to categorize garbage into wet and dry bins. Among others, the city is infamous for having a complicated garbage categorization system. The new regulations are very similar to the ones in Tokyo and are being popularized using games and other fun activities. Japan's decision to revert to the days of commercial whaling has put another Japanese industry in trouble. The whale watching industry has been impacted by the country's decision to hunt whales. Many tourists who went on whale watching trips have come back with traumatic images of dead carcasses of the minke whales. Many of these tourists have also started to question Japan's decision to repeal the ban on commercial whaling. While the whole of Europe seems to be reeling from a heat wave, a desert in northwest China has been attracting visitors thanks to it. People from across China are flooding to the Kungtang Desert for what is being popularly called sand therapy. Sand therapy is a traditional Uyghur treatment and gathers takers as temperatures rise in China. Washington has been hit by a historic flash flood as the city reels under torrential downpour. The rain wreaked havoc as the capital received a record 3.5 inches of rainfall in 2 hours. The slow-moving rainstorm led the water pouring in metro stations and flooded basements, including that of the White House. A flash flood warning was also issued by the National Weather Service. The US President Donald Trump has once again voiced his opposition to the Paris climate deal. He has slammed the accord for being ineffective and said that the US emissions have always been much lesser than that of the developing world. The president also went on to blame the accord for trying to punish the US workers, producers and manufacturers. Police in Switzerland have arrested environmental activists after protests near the Credit Suisse. The protesters were demanding that the bank stop funding fossil fuel excavations across the world. Many of the protesters chained themselves to each other and also to the bank structures, prompting the police to use chain cutters and saws to drag the protesters away. Norway's motorists are going electric in a bid to save the planet. While the Nordic country is the biggest oil producer in Western Europe, it is officially aiming for all new cars sold to be zero emission by 2025. The speedy electrification is, however, due to generous state subsidies. Electric cars are almost extremely and entirely exempt from the heavy taxes imposed on petrol and diesel cars. Researchers in Israel seem to have literally stumbled into a biblical tale. They believe that they have discovered the ancient Philistine town where David sought refuge from King Saul. The head of the Institute of Archaeology at Jerusalem's Hebrew University has said that he is almost 90% sure that the site is Ziklag, the biblical town. Egypt has sought the Interpols' help to track down the 3,000-year-old sculpture of the boy king Tutankhamun. The relic was auctioned off for almost $6 million by the Christie's auction house, despite a fierce outcry from Egypt. Less than a week after the sale, Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities has asked the International Police Agency to issue a circular to trace the artifact. Adrenaline junkies have decided to boost tourism in one of Croatia's least developed regions by building the longest continuous zip line in Europe. The Beware the Bear line draws up to 5,000 people a year. The thrilling ride goes over the forest hills and the valley in the Adriatic hinterland. At 1,700 meters long, the zip line is the longest in Europe. London's ethical pub is now changing the world, well, one drink at a time, employing the homeless and offering beer brewed from leftover bread. The pub aims at being ethical. The pub also uses second-hand furniture, soap made by the blind, and toilet rolls made from recycled paper. All of this aimed at helping the visitors contribute to charity without having to change their lifestyle. Sports and Indian cricket legend Rahul Dravid has been appointed the head of the National Cricket Academy. The BCCI confirmed the appointment of the former Indian captain, whose influence continues to grow in Indian cricket. He is also the head coach of India A and under-19 men's team, and it is believed that Dravid will continue in those roles, but will have the authority to delegate duties to the assistant coaches in case he is unavailable. Dravid is also expected to work closely with the head coaches of the men's and women's senior teams.